The king of all hormesis is fasting. Doing time-restricted feeding on a daily basis should become part of your life. Stop snacking. It's unnatural. You should only have 2 meals a day in a 6-hour interval. This is my recommendation, number one. Now, I got to tell you about stem cells because there's so much stories about all these treatments and I'm not downplaying them. I'm just saying that my fasting recommendations boosts your stem cell production more than anything else I know. Senescent cells are old cells. And these cells have bad chemistry and they produce a lot of inflammatory molecules. So you take a senescent cells and put it amongst normal cells, it'll secrete all these chemicals around them and make all the other cells also dysfunction. In a fasting state, the senescent cells die off. I've had a patient that fasted for 183 days. He only had water, black tea, black coffee, green tea, a little bit of MCT oil, electrolytes in his water, and he went from 400 pounds to 210 pounds. He just looked so good. Look, you're going to get mad, okay? You have to take back your health. No one's going to take it back. Nobody. It's your responsibility.
Dr. J, it's great to have you back on the show. Last time we jumped right into the physiology of heart disease. This time I want to jump right into the practical, starting with your favorite modality, fasting. Why are you such a big fan?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me back again. And that's my favorite topic, fasting. Because I have seen that fasting touches on so many different aspects of the physiology that is relevant to the prevailing problems that people have today, which is basically inflammation. And we know coronary artery disease is an inflammatory condition. So we know that type 2 diabetes, hyperinsulinemia, joint disease, even mental fog, mental diseases, premature aging, all of this touches on diet and fasting. So I stumbled upon fasting basically because the physiology during fasting is such that it touches all these different things. So I go to conferences, for example, and we talk about, oh yes, if you want to reduce this particular condition, let's say, for example, autoimmune disease, and they would talk about the mechanisms and the chemistries of it all, or they talk about hyperinsulinemia, and they talk about the mechanisms of it, and obesity and aging. And at the end of it, I would turn around and say, there's one thing you can do that touches all these different physiologies and improves it, and that's fasting. And how did I stumble upon it? I stumbled upon it because of patients. I listened to my patients. My patients told me those who were fasting for religious reasons. Others were fasting because they were overweight. But they would come in and tell me that, hey, doc, I started fasting and my joint pains went away within a week. Or I started fasting and look what happened to my blood pressure. My blood pressure went down. My patients who had sleep apnea started fasting and they were telling me that the sleep apnea was gone just by losing only 15 pounds. Just by 15 pounds because it changed the way their breathing was. So I started listening to them and I said, there's something into this fasting stuff. So with coronary artery disease as an inflammatory condition, I automatically became interested in fasting. And the more I read about fasting, I am convinced that fasting is supposed to be your natural way of living. Look, fasting is not a fancy thing to do. It's part of your physiology. You're supposed to be fast. You are made to fast. Your design was one of fasting. In 2 million years of evolution, you are supposed to be fasting. You were made during that fasting, just the same way as you were made with your bacteria, for example, and the environment in which you live. Same way, you were supposed to be fasting. And I realized that that's why fasting makes your physiology better. That's why fasting improves insulin resistance, reverses type 2 diabetes, brings blood pressure down, reduces the rate of progression of coronary artery disease, improves joint pain, inflammation, gut health, microbiome, because it's supposed to be built into your physiology. And today's lifestyle, fasting is out. It's gone. We eat so frequently and we eat processed foods. So putting the two together, I started implementing fasting into my own practice. And I've been doing that for about 10 years now. And honestly, if I could put fasting into a pill, I'd give it to everybody. Because fasting has given me and my patients the best results which I wouldn't have others. And losing weight, by the way, is not what fasting was all about. They did lose weight, but they lost weight because their physiology got better, because their hormones got better, because the inflammation in their body got better, and they felt better, and they could now move around more. That's why they lost weight. It wasn't a weight loss program. This is not a weight loss program. This is a metabolic maintenance program. That's what this is. This is optimization of your physiology, correcting the derangements caused by modern man, modern living. That's what fasting's all about.
All right, let's take it from the top. Somebody brand new to fasting, say I'm a patient of yours, metabolically unhealthy. How do you begin with them?
Okay. It starts by how often are you eating now? Because you're metabolically unhealthy. So obviously, I need to know what you're doing now. First question, how many meals a day do you have? And the answer is usually 3 meals a day with 2 snacks, or 2 meals and 2 snacks. What do you eat? Well, I eat a traditional breakfast, which is going to be some cereal and then some juice with it, and maybe an egg. And then I'll have a snack in the middle of the day, which is a sandwich, and I'll eat a fruit with it. And then I'll have lunch. And what do you eat for lunch? Oh, I usually go out and I go to a fast food place and I'll eat something. And then another snack in the afternoon or in the evening. What do you eat? I'll usually find out that they're eating out a lot, they're eating in restaurants. I have to take a history because that tells me how they got metabolically sick. So that's the first part of the history that I take. Then I explain to them that you are metabolically ill. And what does that really mean? We go into those details. But basically, I tell them that you want to change these metabolic things, you need to change your relationship to food, because food is not about nutrition only. Food is sending signals, they're messengers. Food is a messenger to your body. These chemicals that are coming in, they change your physiology. So you need to use food to change your physiology. It got bad because you gave it the wrong message. You sent the wrong chemicals down into your gut, and these messenger molecules messed up your physiology. That's why you're metabolically sick. That's why your HDL is low. That is why your triglycerides are high. That's why your insulin level is high. That's why you've gained so much weight. That's why you have poor sleep. That's why you're getting joint discomfort. And that's why you're getting increasing coronary calcium. That's why you've got a fatty liver as well going on. So I come back to the diet and say, now, because of this modern lifestyle eating that you had, we need to go back to fixing your physiology by changing your food. First thing you need to do is stop eating so frequently. That's the first thing you need to do. Now watch, I didn't say you need to change what you eat first. I said you need to eat less frequently. That is more important. So if you eat less frequently, and you're still eating some of the food that you normally ate, let's say you eat out every evening and then you do go out for lunch in a fast food place, but now you're only having 2 meals within a 6-hour period, that is still a great start to reversing your physiology than eating 5 times a day. So eating more frequently is more deleterious than eating the wrong type of food. That's the first thing I noticed. That's the first thing, because the body is more forgiving when you eat less frequently. You see? So if I'm looking for efficacy, what am I getting? Is it the food that must change, or is it the frequency? It's the frequency. That's the most important thing. So I tell them right away, let's skip breakfast, because honestly, I don't like breakfast. Now, there's always people that are going to say, oh, breakfast is very good. But I've yet had a patient who's told me that they skipped breakfast and they ended up in the hospital. They got gallbladder disease or they had trouble. No. It is true. Patients who start skipping breakfast, there's a small percentage of patients who can get gallbladder disease. But those are patients who already were predisposed to gallbladder disease. So I've not seen it in any of my patients. So the first thing I tell them is, you need to skip the breakfast. Number 2, all snacks need to go. Snacks are unnatural. You are not supposed to snack. Nature does not encourage snacking. You're not made like that. The third thing is, you got to eat in a window period, 18-6. That is my favorite. So that's what I do. The next step I tell them is 18-6. You need to start eating 2 meals in a 6-hour window. And I explain how they should do that. The rest of the time, they're drinking only water or fluids that have no calories. And I do that in a metabolically sick patient. And I make them do that for about 1 month. Then after 1 month, they're getting used to this idea now. Now, if they're still metabolically deranged after a month, then I step it up. The next step is going to be that, okay, 3 times a week, you're going to skip the lunch also and only go to dinner. And they do that. And then I monitor them. I'm seeing how much weight loss they've had. I'm monitoring their metabolic condition. And now they are eating 1 meal a day, 3 times a week. So it depends on my goal and my metabolic parameters. It's not just, I'm just doing it. If it's weight loss that I'm looking for, and that's my final goal, then it's different from my metabolic goal. What is my goal with you? My goal is metabolic. Is my goal with you just weight loss? What are you coming here for? So it is defined by that. But generally speaking, it's slow and steady. You cannot take somebody who's eating 5 meals a day, 3 meals a day, and straight away go to fasting, because you will get a failure. And my success rate is because I bring them into fasting gently. Look, you cannot just start fasting right away, because you will go through what is known as keto flu. Keto flu. I'll explain what that is. So what happens is that in the first 12 hours or so, you've burnt out the glycogen that's in your liver and in your muscles. And then after that, for the next 8 or 9 hours, you have some gluconeogenesis going on. But your ketones haven't kicked in. Ketones come from fat, because you have 2 types of physiology: glucose metabolism or fat metabolism. Your fat metabolism stuck because you never used it. You never used it for a long time. And you can't just turn it on like that. You've got to prime the pump. So if you think that you're going to go straight into a fasting program, I'm sorry, you're going to fail. You're going to fail miserably. And you're going to feel lousy, and then you're just going to shut the book on it. And that's wrong, because you've just denied yourself something that is so valuable to your physiology. So you need to understand. So education is really important. So I do educate the patients. Say, look, you got to watch my videos. You got to read my articles that I give you in my office. You have to turn on your ketogenesis, and you do it gradually. And the only way that the ketones will come in is that free fatty acids need to be released from your fat stores. And the only way your fat stores will release fat is if your insulin level comes down. So if you have severe hyperinsulinemia, which is basically very rampant nowadays, it may take you 20 hours before your insulin level comes down, and then you start generating some ketones. So depending on the patient, 18 hours, sometimes 20 hours, sometimes 24 hours before I notice some ketones spilling into their urine. So I motivate the patient. Say, okay, you want to know how good you're doing, and you want to know whether your fat stores, especially the visceral fat, that's the fat in your liver, around your pancreas, around your pericardium, ectopic fat, the fat that's in your coronary arteries, for example. If you want to mobilize all these fats, which are the bad fats, go home and buy some keto sticks. Measure the ketones in your urine. You will know when you're making ketones. So don't be dismayed. So I make them a partner in this. Don't get dejected that you're not making ketones at 15 or 16 hours. Of course you're not. Maybe you will later on, like Dr. J. I start making ketones very early in my day. By about 15 hours, I'm already well into my ketogenesis, because I've primed my pump. So you as a patient need to understand what that means. Otherwise, you're going to just fail miserably. So as they do more and more of this, the patient notices that, my goodness, yes, I did make ketones only on my OMAD days, which is 1 meal a day, only on those days. But on the other days, I wasn't making much ketones until about 20 hours, or actually 18 hours, right before I break my fast. So I have to educate the patients slowly, then gradually more and more fasting. And then after they've done that for another 3 weeks or so, then I say, now you are ready. Now you're ready to do a prolonged fast. That means a 3-day water fast, or a 5-day water fast, or even a 7-day water fast down the road. But by this time, they will now be able to successfully do it. So Jesse, it's not just about, okay, start fasting tomorrow. No, your body has to adjust itself. The metabolism has to change, and it has to change gradually. So the first thing is the frequency of the eating. And then, of course, we talk about what to eat, which we can talk about, of course. But, you got to stay away from all that garbage food, modern man food. You got to go back to real food, real food. Not products. Don't eat a product. So basically, there's some degree of stunning. You got to stun the patient. Oh, wait a second, you mean I'm not eating food? No, you're not. You're not eating food. You're eating products. Now, who told you to eat pure products? And suddenly the patient turns around and says, oh my, yes, I am eating products. What is a product? A product is food that has been changed into something else. It's not the way nature presented it. Even skim milk is a product because cows don't deliver skim milk straight out, right? We make skim milk. So it's no longer a natural product. So then we talk about food. So I stun them about the food choices. And all of a sudden, by using phrases like this, that you're eating a product, I motivate my patient to look at your food and define it for me. Define it. Is this real food or am I eating a product? And if I'm eating a product, why? Who told me? Who told me this was normal to eat? And I'm training them all to understand that your body is not made to consume a product. Your body was made to consume real food. So gradually we change their eating habits as well. If I throw too many things at one time to them, it does kind of throw them off and it makes it more difficult. But a gradual change in their shopping habits is very important. So we do a lot of education on what to eat as well.
All right, we're going to come back to what to eat, but I want to stick on fasting here for a bit. And I noticed when you were easing somebody into fasting, the angle you took was dropping breakfast and then even dropping lunch. What I'm curious about is, depending on the person and their metabolism, where they're at on this journey, and also depending on what their lifestyle dictates, their work, family obligations, what do you think about flipping that around and having breakfast and lunch and then skipping dinner?
Great question. I knew you were going to ask me this because if you're given a choice, that's what you should do. But today's lifestyle for most people is that they come home for dinner. Like, for example, I have dinner in the evenings only with my wife because I can't have lunch with her because I'm too busy. And if I skip dinner with her, I don't think I'll make a very happy wife. So my lifestyle means that I have to eat dinner in the evening. So I try to get over by 6 o'clock because we want to get to bed. I want to get to bed. And my dinner, they has to separate by 3 hours. So depending on your lifestyle, try to have lunch. I think that lunch is the most important meal, and I'll tell you why. Because every organ has a circadian rhythm to it. And the circadian rhythm of your liver and your gut is such that they are most active in the middle of the day. So you are more likely to digest your food more easily without the detrimental hormonal derangements that we get by eating lunch. Now, so if you're going to do 18-6, you can do breakfast and lunch. You are absolutely right. And lunch is actually more beneficial. I use the example of the dinner because that's just for working people and even for me, that's what's happened. But one day I will go to lunch if I have less obligations here at work. Eventually I'll have lunch. Now you can bring lunch to work as well, but I usually work through my lunch as well. So there you go. But yeah, lunch is better. You are absolutely right. So you got to individualize. It's what suits you. So long as you do some time restricted feeding. That's what it's called, right? Time restricted eating, time restricted feeding. That is now a conscious part of what you need to do. It was previously done unconsciously because food was never available all the time. We didn't have all the conveniences. We didn't have refrigeration. We didn't have the convenience of food all the time. So it was there all the time. You always were supposed to do time-restricted feeding. That's how you evolved. You made a kill. You ate it now, and then you eat it again before it gets bad, and you are done. And then maybe you're not going to eat again for another day or so before you make another kill. But it was in that time. By the way, let me talk about time. Look, how many generations do you think have gone by for Homo sapiens? We would say total is probably anywhere between 15,000 generations. How many generations have we had in the agricultural revolution? And the answer is probably about 500 generations we've spent in the agricultural revolution. How many generations have we spent in the industrial revolution eating this way now, in the modern life? And it's very little, it's less than 50 generations. So for the most of our existence, our genetics is used to eating in a totally different way. And now it's totally different. How can you adapt? That is why I always talk about this, that look, if you want to continue eating this way and eating the type of food also this way and the frequency of eating, you will eventually adapt 10,000 years from now. Then you'll adapt to it. It'll be too late for us. In the meantime, it's going to be very, very difficult. And look what's happening. We have an epidemic, as you know, of chronic diseases. And we're spending more money on chronic diseases, which are all self-inflicted wounds. Exactly what they are. Self-inflicted wounds. And we need to wake up to this. So I sit down with the patients, we have this conversation, and it does shake them up quite a bit to understand that these are self-inflicted wounds. Yeah.
What's becoming apparent really quick is the fact that what you're doing here with fasting and getting rid of these processed foods is you're saying, let's try and live like we have over the past however many years as our ancestors did, but not remove ourselves from modern life. How do we still get the proper inputs, but be in this modern world so we can make our genes happy and live a happy life?
Yeah. So we are very fortunate. We should be very glad that we're living in a modern age also, because we do have the conveniences of these food. We don't need to go out and hunt anymore. Okay? I don't have to climb up the tree to go and get some honey anymore. And I don't have to make a kill and then walk all the way back for 4 hours after my meal back to my home. So modern man has given us everything. We've taken it for granted. I can go out today and source my food right. I'm not telling you to go out and hunt. Make the right choices in your foods. So go out. Don't go to the supermarket once a week. Go there every day. Buy fresh food, fresh fish, chicken, turkey, fresh eggs. Buy in small quantities. Look, get rid of convenience, because conveniently you will die. Conveniently you'll get sick. So modern man, I have a car. I can jump in my car and go to the supermarket. Buy daily, buy small amounts daily. So yes, modern living can amalgamate with the food choices that I'm saying. And don't go in the inner aisles of the supermarket. Stay on the outside. And that way, modern life is so convenient for us. We can do this, but you have to consciously do it. So I don't think that there's a breach in the two between the way our ancestors did. Our ancestors did it, yes, they did it out of necessity at the time, and they had to go out and hunt and fish and do all these things, and they only came across a few foods here and there once in a while. And in fact, that's why, by the way, for millions of years, we have a dopamine center that was a reward center. And the reward center was for what? It was for calories. So when you suddenly found lots of calories in nature, let's say you suddenly came across some honey and you consumed it, the brain, the dopamine centers lit up, and you felt a sense of reward. And if you continue to do that, reward, you become addicted. So what's happened in man today is there's one part of this, Jesse, is that I think that people are addicted. And they're addicted to the food. Because the types of foods that we are eating today, caloric, dense food, processed foods, makes us addicted to it because we have that innate physiology in us. You all have dopamine centers. You all have rewards. We need a reward center. Without a reward center, the human experience would be meaningless. So what's happened is that, I'm not saying that the food industry has exploited it, but our lifestyle has made it such that our reward center has been hijacked by your food. So I also talk to my patients about this, that, realize that there's a possibility that you're addicted now. Therefore, consciously eat now and consciously be aware of the symptoms that you may be going through. For example, okay, so you started your fasting program. Doc, I'm shaking like crazy. I get these sweats and I have cravings for the food. And I say, but didn't we talk about this, that perhaps you are addicted? Yes, because again, it's your Paleolithic mechanisms that are kicking in over here, that your dopamine center, the addiction is there, and what you're going through is true withdrawal. Because I put a continuous glucose monitoring on you, and it's not that your blood sugar has dropped. It's not that you're hypoglycemic, although you will feel good when you go out and eat again some junk food. And you'll say, oh, I had some calories, I ate some chips, or I had sugary food, and I feel so much better after. That's just because you just got your shot. So I think that education, that's why I love what you're doing, because what you're doing here also with everything that you do, you're educating everybody. And this is important to understand, because a lot of people don't understand addiction is real. It does happen. And it's the same dopamine center, by the way, for heroin or for gambling and other centers, and even smoking and nicotine and sugar. All of them share the same dopamine pathway. And that's a slippery slope, because you can fall easily, if you're addicted to one, into another and into another. So I teach them all this, that, listen, this could be addiction, and the way to overcome this addiction is become consciously aware of it. And just like my alcoholic patients, I'll put them in the hospital for 3 days. And after 3 days, the cravings do go away, as long as they don't take alcohol again. The same way, your cravings will go away. It's not going to be the end of the world. You're not going to die. Yes, you're going to feel terrible for maybe a day or two, and you may get some shakes here and there, but eventually your addiction will go away. It'll only take maximum a week, but your addictions will go away. You got to give patients encouragement. Patients need to know that. Look, nothing comes for free. You are going to go through some hard times. That is why fasting is not to be done only on your own. You need a group of people around you, maybe a spouse, maybe a brother, sister, somebody, a friend, that is going to help you do the fasting. Because you need somebody to support you in the right way. Of course, some people can support you in the wrong way and encourage you to start eating again, but no. That is why when you're making these changes, it's nice to have somebody. And the trouble today with the medical profession is that we don't have the support system for this type of stuff. I mean, imagine you came to see me and you said, okay, doc, I've got sleep apnea, hypertension, diabetes, and I want to do all this stuff. And I said to you, okay, you're going to do it. And you go through all this, and you want to walk into my office and come see me in 48 hours again as a patient, your insurance company will be crying out aloud. That's the problem. The system is wrong. Whereas you should be able to call me up. So that's why I have a clinic now. So you can at least call up, speak to somebody, get some help, understand what's going on, and given the encouragement to say, no, that's perfectly normal. That's perfectly, I understand what happened to you. Don't worry, you're going to be okay. Take a face cloth, put it on your head. Take some nice deep breathing. Go drink lots of water right now. Take some MCT oil. Take some electrolytes in your water. And lie down for a few minutes. And after 15, 20 minutes, you're going to feel a lot better. It will go away. This will pass. Hunger, this will also pass. Your ghrelin level will fall after 1 hour. Ghrelin is the hormone that makes you feel hungry. It never stays up forever and ever. Otherwise, you die. After 1 hour, the ghrelin levels come down. The hunger's gone. So, oh my God, what happened to my hunger? Well, it doesn't stay forever. Nobody starts getting hungry at 1 o'clock, and by the time 6 o'clock comes, they're going to eat an elephant. No, it's not going to happen like that. Your hunger's gone by 3 o'clock. So we got to teach people about these things. That look, hunger will come, it'll go. Withdrawal symptoms will come, they will go. And as time goes on, it will get better. Now, you need to be smart. You need to know that if you're diabetic, you might want to do continuous glucose monitoring. But education in a diabetic patient means if you're taking insulin, you need to stop it when you're fasting, especially when you're doing prolonged fasts. If you're taking diabetes medicines, you need to stop it because your glucose levels may plummet. But if you're not a diabetic, you don't even need to do continuous glucose monitoring because your sugar levels will never become hypoglycemic. They may go down to 60, but you do not become hypoglycemic and then start getting seizures or something like that unless you continue to take insulin. Insulin will drop your sugar levels, but fasting will bring it down to normal, bring it down to 70, 65, but never into the 50 or 40 range. So a lot of education for the patients is needed when they're doing all this. Yeah.
Early in the conversation, I heard you say something when we were talking about easing somebody into these fasts for the first time. And depending on their goal, it being a bit different, whether they're trying to regain metabolic health or lose weight. And obviously, if they're regaining metabolic health, one of the side effects will be weight loss. But talk about that nuance between how you'd set up those fasts for those two different situations.
You're absolutely right. If it's for metabolic change, I don't want my patients to lose too much weight, although they will lose weight and it'll be visceral fat. So let me just tell you a little bit about visceral fat. So fatty liver is visceral fat. Fat around your pancreas is visceral fat. The fat that you can pinch on your belly, you put your hand on it and you squeeze your fat on your belly, that is just subcutaneous fat. There's a totally different physiology of that fat from the visceral fat. Visceral fat is toxic. If you did a biopsy of it, it's full of inflammatory cells, lots of inflammatory cells, and they'll be producing lots of cytokines. And that's why they destroy even that organ. That's why the liver can get destroyed by, people say, oh, it's just a fatty liver. No, it's not. It's an inflammatory condition. So it's important in metabolic patients that I want the fat that's in their liver and the fat that's around the pancreas has to go away. So they will lose some weight when they start doing this. You can do an ultrasound of your liver to look at the fat. You can also now measure visceral fat. There are some machines that are available. The DEXA scan machines can measure visceral fat. And you can also do it on a CT scan, which I just started doing to look and quantitate the visceral fat. So on my metabolic patients, I'll have a parameter to follow to say that, yes, you did lose 20 pounds, but it came out mostly from your visceral fat. And here's the numbers. You don't have to do all that. You don't have to be that fancy. But in metabolic patients, they will lose some weight. The weight loss will be mostly visceral. And my patient's first words out of the mouth is that my stomach went down. Look, if you are lean everywhere and you have a big stomach, you have a problem. And that stomach will be, your belly will be tight. There's not too much fat to squeeze on it, but it's out there. And when that goes in metabolic patients, they're going to lose weight. But that's what I'm looking for, because the first place that you lose the fat is the visceral fat. So first and foremost, look at yourself in the mirror. If you're not fat, but you have a belly, you have a problem. If you look at you sideways and your belly's sticking out, but looking from the back, you look great, you have a problem. If you're a man and your waistline is more than 35 inches, you have a problem. If it's a woman and it's more than 33, 34, there's a problem. There may be, and look, not everyone's going to have a problem. They are metabolically normal obese patients. They don't have inflammation. They don't have metabolic disease. They don't have high CRPs. They don't have a low HDL. They don't have a high triglyceride. And they don't have high blood pressure. They don't have visceral fat. So not every obese patient is metabolically deranged. If you're metabolically deranged, the fat from your belly has to go. Okay. So When they lose weight, I'm not asking them to lose total body fat. And many patients come to me and say, "Oh, my muscles are going to be gone, and I'm going to become frog legs." And I say, "No, that's absolutely not true. In fact, if you take two cohorts of patients, one is on a low-calorie diet, but spaced out 5 times a day, versus the one who's doing fasting. The one who's doing fasting will actually maintain more muscle mass. And I want you to know that, because fasting makes you lose preferentially the fat that's in your ectopic fat, first, the visceral fat. The caloric restriction patients, they will lose fat everywhere, a little bit from the visceral fat, subcutaneous fat, and from the muscles as well. And this study has been done and has been shown because the physiology of fasting is different from caloric restriction. Calorie restriction spread over the day is different from no calories all day long and then calories only in a time-restricted fashion. In a fasting program, the growth hormone levels go up the longer you fast. And growth hormone maintains muscle mass. You get BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. You also get autophagy, which of course we can talk about all these beautiful things that happen to the body in the fasting state. You get stem cell mobilization. All these things happen in a fasting state. In a caloric restriction state, these findings are not there. So the physiology is totally different. You have to do the fasting. So in the metabolically deranged patients, they will lose some weight. And when they are eating, I'm not asking them to count calories. Look, I don't count calories. It's very simple. Eat real food. Life is complicated already. Don't be taking pictures of them and saying, "Oh, I got so many fats and so much carbs and so much this." It gets too complicated. Life is complicated already. Just simplify. You have metabolic disease. You're going to do time-restricted feeding. When you do eat, I can't tell you what to eat. You may be Chinese, or you may be Indian, or you may be American, or you may be European. You're going to eat what you normally eat, but whatever you eat, however you cook it, however you do it, make it all natural. So it has to be real food, and don't kill your food. That means don't overcook it, and we'll talk about this, advanced glycation end products, burning foods, and the way you cook it. And don't put wrong ingredients into it, like vegetable oils and stuff like that. So my feeding pattern is very simple. You metabolically sick, okay, fine, I'm not counting your calories. I'm not restricting how much you eat also. When you do eat, you will sit down and eat till you feel good, and then walk off the table. But you're going to be eating real food. Now, my obese patient, he's a little bit different. He needs to lose a lot of weight. So I'll just give you an example. I just saw a patient of mine yesterday who came about 7 or 8 weeks ago, and he was quite obese. And I gave him this introductory pattern of what to do, and I wrote it all out for him that, okay, for 2 weeks you're going to do the time restriction in a 18-6 fashion, and then you're going to start giving me a 3-day water fast, and then go back to eating one meal a day for 7 to 8 days, and then do another 3-day water fast. Because with him, I was far more aggressive because I wanted him to lose weight. He came back, he already lost 46 pounds. 46 pounds. And he was doing the urine tests, and he says that when I'm fasting now by 30 hours, my urine dipstick, which cost pennies, showed that my ketones were dark blue, off the chart. Now, as a patient, you know how good he felt when he saw all that blue? You need to do that. So you motivate yourself. Look, all this blue stuff. Where is the blue stuff coming from, these ketones? They're coming from your liver. How did they get to your liver? It came from fatty acids being converted to ketones in your liver. Where did the free fatty acids come from? They came from fat. Every molecule of ketones that you saw in your urine came from fat. You're basically peeing away some of your fat. Now take that home. So in him, the difference in him was we wanted him to lose weight. So what he was doing is excellent. He was doing 3-day water fast and then 5 to 6 days of OMAD again, and then 3-day water fast and 5 to 6 days. I won't do that to my metabolic patient. My metabolic patient is more gradual. This guy's going to lose a lot of weight. And also what he was eating was very important. So with this particular patient, I did attempt to make sure that his meals, of course, are not huge, massive meals, but I already knew that he was having problems with certain types of foods. So I had basically asked him to restrict his diet to only the foods that he was not allergic to. So he was basically eating fish, chicken, turkey, and eggs, and a little bit of vegetables on the side. So he was like on a modified carnivore diet, and he started losing a lot of weight, and that enhanced his ketogenesis. You see? So I'm manipulating him a little bit more than I did my metabolic patient. My metabolic patient, I'm a little bit more careful with. And so I'm individualizing a lot. I'm very aggressive with obese patients. So you know, Jesse, I've had a patient that fasted for 183 days. 183 days. He had no food. He only had water, black tea, black coffee, green tea, a little bit of MCT oil, electrolytes in his water. And he went from 400 pounds to 210 pounds. And when he walked in here, nobody knew that he lost all this weight. He just looked so good. Now, how come he looked so good? Because his skin was not hanging under his arms. And his face didn't look like it was a skeleton with the skin just hanging over it. And oh my goodness, look at him. No, his skin was nice. His belly, he didn't have an apron. Now, you know what I'm talking about, where the patients have lost all this weight all of a sudden and all the skin is there, and now they have to go for plastic surgery to remove it. And the question is, why didn't that happen? Why didn't that happen? Because when you do fasting, and you get autophagy as well, and the fasting physiology takes away some of the skin as well. So your skin actually retracts. It's not just getting rid of only fat, because if I did a total body liposuction on you, you'll be left with all the skin. So in my diet program, my weight loss program, my fasting programs, I see that my patients' skins are better. Under their arms, they don't have this thing hanging out, versus those who do it in other ways, including drugs, by the way, weight loss drugs. I've seen it in them. Because remember, not every patient's going to follow my advice. Some of them come in here and they've already been given drugs. Yes, they've lost 40 pounds or 30 pounds. But I can tell from the moment they walk in through the door, I can see their face and I can tell them that, yes, you've been on drugs, and I can see their arms and their belly. It's a different type of weight loss. Fasting is a different type of weight loss. And it's the weight loss that millions of years of evolution has supported, and your physiology has supported you. He's an extreme, but I've got dozens and dozens of patients that have fasted 50 days, 40 days, and they had dire circumstances. They had bad diabetes, joint disease, sleep apnea, just name it. They were basically dying. And you got to do this. But they come back feeling amazing. And their energy levels are extremely high, by the way. Because look, one thing you need to understand. When they get into ketogenesis, these patients feel amazing. Their energy levels are good. I feel amazing when I'm in ketones. My brain functions better. My reflexes are faster. My memory is great. You know, by the end of the day, people say to me, "Doctor, at 5:30, you're still so sharp," because I'm probably making a lot of ketones at that time. See? So ketogenesis does give you a certain affect that is just very useful. So I find that patients feel lousy. Okay, so backtracking. Day 1, a little bit hard, but doc, I managed. Day number 2, a little bit harder. I got really hungry at the end of the second day. So I really, really had to force myself to go to bed. Takes a little bit of MCT oil. I took the electrolytes. They did make me feel better. And then I went to bed. Third day, I began to feel a little bit nicer, but it was also kind of a rough day. But by the time my fourth day came around, I felt good. I did not go through any problems. I was full of energy. And on my fifth day, I was really, really on top of my game. I actually even went to the gym because you told me to exercise in a fasting state. So I went to the gym. I felt really good on the fifth day. And honestly, Doc, I could have gone on, but you told me to do 5 days. So I stopped at 5 days. So how often do I hear this? I hear this all the time. It's not like Doc, I was miserable on the second day, and third and fourth was even worse, and on the fifth day I was just terrible. No, they get better. So the endurance is important. So again, educating the patient, giving them the support. Support how? How? You need a coach. You need a team that you can call. Hey, you call my team that I have over here, for example. This is what I'm going through. This is what I'm feeling. And we can guide you through how to get through that. But the worst day usually is the third day. But after the third day, prolonged fasting becomes easier and easier to do. And you just got to get mad. Look, you got to get mad. Okay? Just get mad. Because you have to take back your health. No one's going to take it back. Nobody. It's your responsibility. And this is something that I tell patients that, look, it's your responsibility and you need to take your life back. Do you love yourself? Do you deserve it? Do you deserve better health? Do you deserve better relationships? Do you deserve more out of life? So part of this is all psychology as well. Talking to patients and motivating them to say, look, this is what's at the end of this tunnel here. Let's do it. And you just got to get determined and you just got to say, that's it. I'm going to do this. That's what I want. So doing this is really, really important. That is why I'm saying that fasting touches on metabolic, obesity, joint discomfort, coronary calcium, atherosclerosis, inflammation. We talked about the plaque ruptures. All that goes down. Inflammation, the gut. Oh my goodness. We can talk about the gut. The gut changes completely. Of course, the patient comes to me on the third day. Doc, I used to have a bowel movement every day. Now I'm having a bowel movement every other day. And I said, well, nothing went in, so nothing will come out. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Oh, but you told us that, you need a good bowel movement a day. I say, yeah, when you're eating, you need a good bowel movement at least once a day. So there's some things that they need to get used to. Water. Now, I can tell you more about water. Why is water and electrolytes so important? And now I'm going to explain to you why it's important. So don't try to do dry fasts, okay? So 10 glasses of water with electrolytes at least once a day. Why do I do that? Because as your insulin level comes down, your sodium level in your body goes down because insulin holds on to sodium. So now when your insulin levels come down, you're going to pee out the sodium into your urine. So you can get intravascular volume depletion very quickly. When you are fasting, patients come back and tell me, hey, I was fasting and I made more urine on the days that I was fasting. Well, of course, because you're getting what is known as natriuresis, salt coming out in your urine, the salt that your body held on to because your insulin levels are coming down and therefore it's releasing that salt. So you can get intravascular volume depletion. So you need your electrolytes. If you're getting cramps, you need to take electrolytes. So the electrolytes that I use is called LMNT. Sometimes I just take Celtic salt, half a teaspoon, put it in a glass of water, shake it up, drink it. Sometimes I take Himalayan salt, put it in there, shake it up, drink it. Well, at least once a day, especially if you're getting cramps. I do that because that electrolytes are really important. If you're feeling terrible, getting a headache, you're lethargic, you're feeling tired, what are you supposed to do? First things first, take your blood pressure. Make sure it's not too low. If your blood pressure is low, you have a problem, you call your caregiver and say, look, my blood pressure usually runs 120. It's now only 90. You're probably very volume depleted and electrolyte depleted. So if you're taking blood pressure medications, you need to stop that. And then I tell them, okay, fine. You just need to be rehydrated. Come into the office and maybe I'll give you an IV. Now, I don't do that to every patient, but occasionally, maybe 1 out of 20 patients, I'll put them in the office for an hour or so and give them some saline, and then off they go. But you can do this. How? Drink water, at least 10 glasses of water a day. Put some electrolytes in at least 1 or 2 glasses a day. Okay? So you're going to get and they come with the minerals and everything else. What is MCT oil for fasting? MCT oil is a short-chain fatty acid. It's immediately available to the body as soon as it goes in for metabolism. And who's metabolizing this? Well, who's using it? It's your mitochondria. So obviously, how are you going to feel? Mitochondria starts utilizing it immediately. It's a great energy source immediately for your body. So you're feeling down because maybe your ketones haven't kicked in yet. Maybe it's day number 2 and your ketones haven't kicked in yet. You take some exogenous MCT oil and you will find that you'll feel so much stronger and so much better. Women, if they take more than a tablespoon, they can get some loose bowel movements more than men. You can take a tablespoon a day without any difficulty in most patients. You can even take 2 tablespoons if you get used to it. So I do use MCT oil in my patients to help them overcome the fast. And then I do use green tea and black tea, black coffee. In some patients, I do add some fat because they say, Doug, I'm so hungry. I'm going to basically break my fast. And I'll tell them, okay, you like coffee? Yes. I miss the cream. All right. Put a little bit of butter in it. So they'll take a small piece of butter, maybe a 1/4 teaspoon, even 1/2 teaspoon, and they put it in their hot coffee. And you'll be surprised what it does. It doesn't break the fast, but it satiates the patient immediately. His hunger goes away, and he's able to come through. So all these are little clues that I give the patients that they can actually do. During the fast, they should not do other supplements that come with colorings and artificial flavorings and sweeteners. No. You're fasting, you want to detoxify, because part of fasting is also detoxification, which we haven't even talked about yet because we've been talking about metabolism. But fasting, what it does to your microbiome and what it does to your detoxification, that's a huge topic which we can talk about. But fasting touches on all these different aspects. So don't toxify yourself while you're trying to detoxify through fasting. So very important stuff. Yeah.
Getting into some specifics here with the MCT oil, how do you feel about the liquid versus the powder? And then there are different carbon chains, the C8, the C10. Do you find a certain one's better than others?
Not really. I don't even differentiate. And whether you use the powder or the oil makes no difference to me whatsoever. Absolutely. I'm a practical person. As long as it worked for you, I'm fine. See, there are some people who will split hairs about these things. Oh, the oil versus the powder. Look, I'm very practical, down to earth. What's my purpose of giving you MCT? To make you feel better so that you can hold on to your fast. Because that's my goal with you. Make you fast and don't break your fast. So I have no problems with that whatsoever. Yeah. And I don't get into the C8, C10 stuff because I don't think it's clinically that relevant. I haven't seen too much data on that either. So, yeah.
What about exogenous ketones? Jumping right over that step of converting the MCT into ketones and just putting them right into the body. How do you feel about that?
There is information on that. And there is data to show that. Rhonda Patrick talks about that as well with Dominic, and they talk about that. And yes, it does help. Have I done it to many patients? I can tell you I've probably done it to a handful of patients where I've given them exogenous ketones because they do become an immediately available energy source. So when would I probably do that? When would I do that? Give them exogenous. Somebody who really needs to do the fasting absolutely has to do it. And they just not able to overcome the lack of energy, the symptoms of extreme fatigue, tiredness that they're feeling. then I sometimes may say that, okay, you need to go out and get some exogenous ketones into your system temporarily, and I might do that. But I exhaust all other possibilities. So that's the last resort. But it does work, by the way. It does work. It does work. Does it? It makes your symptoms better. Does it improve your overall physiology of the weight loss, the goal? No, it doesn't, because the ketogenesis that you get from fasting and the subsequent biological effects, which is the autophagy, the brain-derived neurotropic factor, the stem cell mobilization, will not occur when you inject the other substances IV. It's a different physiology. Yes, you're going to feel a little bit better, but you're not going to get all that other benefit, because ketogenesis is just one part. Your ketones are there, yes, but they are a product of your physiology that changes. That's one thing that changes. But there's a whole bunch of other chemistry that's in the background because of the fasting, not because of just the ketones. Now, ketones themselves are helpful because they burn better and they're an energy source for the brain as well as the rest of the body. But if you just give ketones only, you're still missing out on all the other biochemistry that occurs because of fasting. Fasting is not only about an energy source. It's truly about your metabolism. It's about mTOR. It's about AMP. It's about your NAD/NADH ratios. It's about your stem cells, which we can talk about also. Oh my goodness! And it's all about your brain-derived neurotropic factor, your growth hormones. All these things change with fasting. Fasting is the way. There's no real shortcut. There's no shortcut. I can hack it with some. I can hack your symptoms with some supplements, but that's about it. That's not the goal, though.
So earlier you went through what it would feel like for a patient to go through 5 days of fasting. You've named all these benefits that we'll get from fasting. Why don't we overlay on top of all this, when somebody stops eating, they just had their last meal, they're going to embark on a 5-day fast. Let's go through and talk about the different physiology changes, these different benefits you've been talking about, when they kick in, and really take our time and explain all these magnificent benefits somebody will get.
Yeah. So in the first 12 hours, it's basically going to be your glycogen that's going to be depleted from your liver and from your muscles. And that's an immediate energy source, like your current account, it's cash coming straight out. Then the gluconeogenesis comes in, and that will sustain you for probably another 6 to 8 hours, maybe 9 hours. But at some point, you're going to run out of glucose and you're going to start making ketones. Now, you and I, we all, by the way, make some ketones every day. It's just that we don't make a lot of it. Ketones come from the muscles. All of us make some ketones, but most of us make very little. And the ketones will usually kick in probably around 18, 19, 20 hours, tiny amounts of it. But as you fast longer, the ketone levels will go higher and higher and higher. So that hopefully by 36 hours, you're really into ketogenesis. Now, the other change, autophagy. The change that's going to happen, autophagy, you should expect autophagy to happen around 36 hours. In the average patient, hoping that autophagy is going to happen in 24 hours, there's always a little bit of autophagy also. Look, everything happens in small amounts in everybody, because you and I are still having autophagy. All of us are having autophagy. It's just the extent of autophagy is very minor. So the average person, your average person that's eating 3 times a day, who's got metabolic disease, he's also having some autophagy. We all have to have some autophagy, but he's having very little autophagy. As a result of that, his cellular mechanisms are not very efficient. Autophagy means that when the body senses that there's an energy deficit, the chemical changes that occur include a decrease in your mTOR, increase in your AMP, and the ratios of certain chemicals in your body, and your SIRT, S-I-R-T, which are certain chemicals, and your FOX3, which is a certain chemical, they start going up. in your fasting state. And they send a signal to your cells to say, hey, I am here now. My job is to take all these redundant chemicals and redundant protein molecules that have been just sitting in the cytosol of your cells, break them up, package them into little lysosomes, and export them out of the cell so that the breakdown products can be used by the body, who at this time is in a fasting state and needs these. How does the body give the message to the cell? It gives it through all these chemicals. The AMP, the SIRT, the FOX3. So these are the chemical changes that initiate the autophagy. The autophagy results in a more efficient cell. The cell's efficiency is in its ability to then make proteins, the RNA, the endoplasmic reticulum, all that also improves. But also your mitochondria improve and your genetic material improves. So I'm going to explain what my mitophagy is. Mitophagy, that means your mitochondria in a fasting state like this, under the influence of these chemicals, your mitochondria. It's funny that nature makes mitochondria and we think that all mitochondria are the same. They're not. They have some human tendencies. Some get lazy, some get round, some get fat, some get long, and they become inefficient. So inefficient mitochondria are no good because those mitochondria make a lot of reactive oxygen species and less ATP in the electron chain. So what happens here is that these mitochondria that are not efficient in producing ATP and they produce more reactive oxygen species instead, that means they're kind of dirty mechanisms, these mitochondria get knocked off. And in return, you get division of other mitochondria and production of new mitochondria because these chemicals go to the DNA of the mitochondria, turn on certain mechanisms, and make new mitochondria. These new, fresh mitochondria, they get poured into the cells. Why does a child's mitochondria is so different from an adult's mitochondria, right? So you're producing these new mitochondria, which are much more efficient, much better, because the body is trying to renew itself to make a better specimen out of you. Fasting creates a better specimen out of you. It improves your cells, it improves your mitochondria. It repairs your DNA. Your DNA undergoes changes under these chemicals influences, like FOX3, for example. So you'll repair your DNA, your histones. Oh, wow, what are histones? Histones are chemicals that cover over your chromatin material. And when they unfold, they release, they open up, and now certain genes get expressed. So now these genes can translate and make new proteins, okay? So these chemicals, when they are there, they make your chromosomes start making new things. And some of these new things are anti-inflammatory chemicals. So when your FOX3 is high, when your SIRT1 is high, your NRF2 will be turned on. What is that, NRF2? All that is that these chemical changes change your mitochondria, but also change your genetic material. When your genetic material now changes, it's going to make anti-inflammatory molecules. These anti-inflammatory molecules are going to benefit the patient. So who turned it on? It was these chemicals. Who turned on those chemicals? It was an energy deficit state. What made that energy deficit state? Fasting did. So fasting turns on an anti-inflammatory. Now, you see, we're coming to anti-inflammation. Fasting is anti-inflammatory because it produced the chemical changes that made your chromatin material now make certain new anti-inflammatory molecules. So you got new mitochondria, you got new expression of materials from your genetic materials that are anti-inflammatory. And these pathways have all been worked out. And we know these pathways, they've all been worked out. And thereby you have a cell that is going to be more efficient and more resilient. Resilient cell. Resilient to what? to everything. It's a stronger cell. You basically become a stronger cell, a stronger human being. What does that mean? I'm going to explain what that means and what's my practical experience on that. When your cells have undergone this type of change, we call it a hormetic change, right? Hormesis is a stress on that cell. So I stressed that cell through my fasting program, and it produced a cell now that is a new type of cell. It's more resilient to disease. It's better functioning and all. How does that transfer to real life? Well, now that cell under stress is going to survive longer. And your body wants you to survive because it wants you to survive till you get your next calorie intake that's going to come in. For me, what I've seen is that when people fast and they undergo surgery of any kind, they recover faster. When patients are fasting and they're undergoing chemotherapy at the same time, I've noticed, and I've seen it, and I've worked out the mechanisms, that they actually go through chemotherapy much more easily. They get less nausea, less vomiting, they feel better. And the theory, and I haven't proven this in studies because I don't do those type of studies, but basically what happens is that the chemotherapy is going to attack every cell in the body. Don't think that it's only attacking your cancer cells. It doesn't happen that way. But you've made your whole body more resilient through this process, so the cells are less likely to succumb under chemotherapy. And then, of course, the cancerous cells are going to die under this circumstance. In that context, you need to know about senescent cells. What are senescent cells? Senescent cells in your body are old cells. And these cells have bad chemistry. They haven't died yet. They're just old, and they hang around, and they produce a lot of inflammatory molecules. So you take a senescent cells and put it amongst normal cells, it'll secrete all these chemicals around them and make all the other cells also dysfunction. In a fasting state, the senescent cells become the target as well, and they die off. So fasting is a senolytic. Fasting gets rid of your old zombie cells around your body as well, and thereby reduces inflammation as well. See? Because those zombie cells produce a lot of inflammatory molecules. You got to get rid of zombie cells. You got to get rid of these senescent cells. You have to. We all have zombie cells as we get older. But nature made it that intermittent fasting, you're going to fix that all out. Eventually you'll die. But you'll have a longer healthful span because our health span has dropped by 12 years because of this modern living. So you may live to 86, but my health span is so low that I spent the last 15 years of my life sick and dysfunctional and just feeding the healthcare system or whatever, or becoming bankrupt. The number one cause of bankruptcy is medical bills. So I'm digressing there. But the point I'm trying to make is that it's our responsibility to understand more what fasting does and how it's going to impact your physiology. Because when you're empowered with that knowledge that my senescent cells are going away, my telomeres are probably getting a little bit longer, which means I'm going to live a little bit longer. And by the way, we know that this type of diet makes you live longer. We know that. We know that. That's been done in humans and animals. The hormesis induced by fasting makes you live longer. There are other hormetic things that we can also do. So I like those types of hacks, but we can talk about that some other time, which is, heat, for example, and saunas and the likes. They are also hormetic stresses, but the king of all hormesis is fasting. That is the king of all hormesis. There is no bigger hormetic stress than fasting. None whatsoever. So now, at 36 hours, because that's where we are stuck, right? 36 hours, autophagy is kicking in. Autophagy goes higher and higher and higher. You get maximum autophagy 72 hours. So don't tell me that, oh, I'm getting an autophagy on day 2. No, you want maximum autophagy. You're going to get some, but you want maximum, you got to go 3 days. Okay? You got to go 3 days if you want autophagy. Anything less than that, it's helpful. But aim for that 3 days. That's what I'm saying. You got to get past that 3 days. And once you're into your 4th and 5th day, it's amazing. Your autophagy is now off the roof. Your ketone production, of course, is very high. When you break your fast, oh, by the way, your growth hormone levels are really, really high at this point as well. There's nothing better than fasting to increase your growth hormone level. These studies have been done. 2,000% increase in your growth hormone production during fasting. Show me something that can increase your growth hormone by that much. So you take my old patients, right? My elderly patients. I can look at them and I know that they've got some form of adult growth hormone deficiency because they got some sarcopenia, which is weakness of the muscles. They're just old, they're weak. And I wonder if I give them a little bit of growth hormone exogenously, maybe I can reverse this. But exogenous growth hormone injections carries a lot of risk, and it does cause some adverse chemistry in the body. So I don't like that. Anything the nature itself does, the body, is better. Fasting increases your growth hormone. I know that that type of increase in the growth hormone is not going to harm the patient. And I've noticed that when my elderly patients do fasting and then they're exercising also during the fast, they come back with more strength. Now, they don't come back buff. They come back with more strength. So what? Well, guess what? The stronger you are, the longer you're going to live, and also the less likelihood of injury and your ability to recover from a trip and fall. You need strength. Fasting gives you more strength in your muscle. Your muscle will be stronger. You're not going to get buff. Forget it. There's other ways to become buff. So your strength increases. And for me, for all my patients, strength is very important. Your ability to recover from a fall, because you're going to trip. But how come I trip and I recover quickly? Because my reflexes are faster and because my muscles are strong. So I can recover from that imbalance. So this is an important part of it. So growth hormone, very important for me in my patients. So I tell them to exercise while they're in the fasting state to maximize that as well. And then when the fast is broken, when they break the fast, is a very crucial time as well. Because now all of a sudden, all these nutrients are coming in, right? It's a shock for the body, right? All the stuff coming in, the intestines are like, whoa, I got to wake up and I'm going to start doing my stuff again. How do you do it? Well, because of the change in the chemistry that occurred while you are fasting, your body is now hungry for certain types of nutrients. And what are those nutrients? One of them is phosphate. So phosphate deficiency is important. And patients who do the longest fast, when they start eating again, they can get muscle weakness, aches, pains when they start eating again, because all of a sudden they're getting phosphate deficiency. So when they break the fast, I usually encourage them that, hey, go and take some bone broth. See, these are tricks. Sometimes if a patient wants to fast long enough and they just cannot do it, I'll tell them, go ahead and just have some bone broth today. I found that bone broth does have a little bit of calories in it, but doesn't seem to break the fast that much. I'd rather have you do that. So go and get some bone broth. It's full of electrolytes, it's full of glycine, it's full of phosphates. And the patient will be able to break the fast and not go through that, what is known as refeeding syndrome, where they get aches and pains and feel lousy because they get phosphate deficiency. So they'll take their bone broth, and then about a few hours later, they can have a nice light meal. So they can have a salad and gradually get into normal feeding. You don't go straight into a high-protein diet, for example. Yeah. And so I discourage that. So I gradually get into it. And at that point, stem cells go up. Now, I got to tell you about stem cells because there's so much stories about all the stem cell treatments and that, and I'm not downplaying them. I'm just saying that my fasting recommendations boosts your stem cell production by your own body more than anything else I know. Tell me one thing that boosts your ability to make stem cells. Nothing. Nothing comes even close to fasting. Now, there are certain foods and there are certain supplements that people can take that on a day-to-day basis increases your stem cell production. Why is stem cells so important? For me, it's very important as a cardiologist because there's a thing called vascular endothelial stem cells. These are stem cells that go and repair the blood vessels, the lining of the blood vessels. And I'm interested all about blood vessels, right? Because I think everything in my life revolves around blood vessels. I want my intima to repair itself. And these stem cells come in and they repair the endothelium of the blood vessels. And we know that. And we know there's lots of studies done that when you don't have that progenitor cell production, when it's low, that you get progressive atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis progressive fast. Because why? Because you don't have the repair mechanisms. You're not making those progenitor cells. Fasting tremendously increases progenitor cell production. We know that. We know that. It's been proven to do that. So I, in my mind, know that my patient who did that 5-day water fast now is repairing his arteries all over his body. And those stem cells know where to go. How do they know where to go? Because the body, when it creates a need, it sends a signal, so those stem cells go right there. And they actually, because it's a signal that it sends out so that they hone in onto the right place. Stem cells. See, I can take stem cells right now. I'll give you so many million stem cells. They'll be lost. They don't know where to go. And let's say you had a myocardial infarction. I'm a cardiologist. And the front of the heart is now dead. And I inject stem cells into you. And I hope that they all went in and stayed over there into the anterior wall of your myocardium and started living in there and then started becoming so. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. Those studies have been done. I was so disappointed because all my life I've been waiting for something like that. Okay, you have your heart attack, I'm going to inject you with stem cells and your heart is going to come back to normal. It just didn't happen. So those stem cells have to get the right signal. The residence rates need to be just right as well. Fasting increases stem cell production and repairs your endothelium and repairs all the parts of the body that need repair under the conditions of fasting. And those studies have been done in animals, but also in humans. We've seen that stem cells go up tremendously. So I'm very fond of talking about stem cells because, again, look, you, my patient, this is the knowledge I have. And I want to partake this knowledge with you to motivate you to make the lifestyle change you need to make. Take this knowledge, know what it's doing to you, visualize it in your mind's eye, and you will fast not for 5 days, you'll fast for 7 days. That's my goal. That's my goal. When you come back and say, Dr. J, I did 7 days because I felt amazing. That's what I want. And now, there's doctors actually who are advocating 7-day fast for even patients who have cancer, for example, to get rid of cancer cells in the body. Because as you know, cancer cells survive mostly in a glycolytic mechanism and environment. And under the conditions of extreme ketosis, those cells die. So many of my, so I've had many patients came to me. They were neither obese, nor were they metabolically really sick. And they said, guide me through a 7-day water fast. I'll do it. Let's do it. I have no problem with that. I have no problem. But I'll make sure that your diet is good. Supplements. After you finish your fast, I'll give you some supplements. But during the fast, I try to keep things very simple. And I usually don't give my supplements, the D3, the K2, and all that, especially if you're doing a short fast. Now, if you're going months and months, I might give you some D3, K2, omega-3. These are my favorites, right? Vitamin D, so important. K2, so important. Omega-3, I can't tell you how important omega-3 is, right? These are my standard supplements that I give everybody, especially my fasting patients, as soon as they finish the fast, up to and then after the fast. Because I think if I give you fish oil on an empty stomach, you might get some distress and you might get some. So I just keep it very simple. You're fasting, you're fasting. That's it. That's it. Just don't take it. Take it afterwards. And there's enough nutrients in you to get you through the fast. So empowering yourself with that knowledge has helped me to get better results. Jesse, I know I'm telling you all this stuff, but I'm just so excited about fasting. It's wonderful stuff.
Let's come back to stem cells. You got into the importance there. At what point did those come in? How many days into the fast?
They come at the end of your fast. Because the body is trying to survive, and in the survival phase, it's not going to release too many stem cells. Stem cells will come at the time of feeding.
Got it.
Now
You did
that
mention that, but then it sounded like maybe they came in during the fast as well. Talk more about that then.
Yeah. So right as soon as you break your fast, there's a signal that goes. You remember I just said in the beginning, food is not just food. Food is a signaling molecule in your body. It's telling your body how to be. It's changing your physiology. It's telling your hormones what to do. It's telling all the chemicals in your body all over what to do. When you refeed yourself, immediately there's a change in the body. That signal goes to the brain, to the stem cells, and your bone marrow starts pouring out those stem cells at that point. So in the first 24 to 36 hours after you break your fast, there's an outpouring of stem cells that goes throughout the body. Yeah, so most of it occurs at the time that you break your fast. That's when you get it. Now, there may be data to show that this stem cell mobilization later on in a more prolonged fast, so I'm talking about like 18, 20, 30 days, there must be some. And I don't have that data, so I can't tell you. Because I'm sure there's some stem cells being produced later on. But I can tell you this much from the studies that I've read, that when you break your fast at 3, 5, 7 days, you get a surge of stem cells going out. I'm sure there's some that later on as well during your fast. But in the first 5 days, you're not going to see much stem cell production. It's usually at the end of those 5 days. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned bone broth, great way to break the fast. We want to ease back into our feeding after that.
Yes.
You also said there are specific supplements and foods to enhance the stem cells in general. So let's talk about that. And then specific foods at the end of the fast during that short period of time where we're going to be producing stem cells. Anything we can take in that window to enhance.
So there are certain foods that enhance your stem cell production. In fact, there's some companies that make their supplements out of those particular foods, and then you take that just without fasting, just on a day-to-day basis. And the idea is that you're going to make more stem cells that way. I don't advocate that much. The foods that I do like are, look, vegetables are actually medicines. You got to think of it like that. Look, there's so many million species of vegetables and plants available. But how come we only eat a few of them? Because the rest of them are all poisonous. So they have a chemistry, adverse chemistry. The ones that we do eat can also be adverse to us to some extent. And we do know that there are things that certain plants have a lot of lectins in them, for example. Other plants have certain medicinal properties. So I look at plant food as a medicinal food. The medicinal food that I really love are cruciferous vegetables. Vegetables that have a lot of sulfur in them, for example. So all the broccoli, Brussels sprouts, broccoli sprouts. By the way, broccoli sprouts. All right, let's come back to broccoli sprouts. You want to break your fast? Go and get some broccoli sprouts. So what happens is that they have this thing called sulforaphanes in them. Okay, these sulforaphanes get released into your body, and they stimulate a lot of the enhance the anti-inflammatory responses in the body, and the repair mechanisms and possibly the stem cell mobilization is increased by eating those types of foods. So all cruciferous vegetables are fantastic for you. All of them, all of them. So that's what I would encourage people to really eat cruciferous vegetables. I use that a lot. All herbs herbs are medicinal, and they all count as one vegetable. So if you want 30 vegetables in a week, already 7 or 8 of them are going to be herbs. So eat the herbs. I love herbs. So you gotta look at herbs as medicinal food. I also encourage fermented foods when you break your fast, because now you want to reset your microbiome. So you must start eating fermented foods, and fermented foods will have prebiotics, postbiotics, everything all in there. So I love kefir, because kefir has so many different strains of bacteria. And now you want to repopulate your gut, because what did you do to your gut microbiome when you were fasting? You decimated it, changed completely. All the bacteria that rely on sugar, carbs, died off. You want to fix your microbiome? Go on a fast. If you think you got a leaky gut or you have SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, just go on a fast. You'll fix your gut. Bacteria in your gut rely on you to feed them. And when you don't feed them, and if you have the bad guys in your gut, they'll eat your mucin and you'll get a leaky gut, right? You can enhance the growth of good bacteria in your gut by eating fiber. That's why I'm saying eat real food. Look, what's the difference between real food and all this artificial food? Yes, the biggest thing is that it's been stripped out of the fiber. The fiber's missing. Okay? Forget all the chemicals that were added to it. Even a child will tell you that there's chemicals added to this food, right? There's colorings, there's artificial preservatives. But what they don't realize is that there's no fiber in it. And the fiber is not for me. I can't digest fiber. The fiber is for my bacteria. So I want to reset my gut microbiome. So this is not just for fasting. This is for all of you, every day. Why are you feeding yourself only? For what? You should be feeding yourself and all the 100 trillion buddies that you got in your gut. They need it. And it's the good bacteria that eat fiber. The bad guys eat starch and simple sugars, right? So when you're breaking your fast, you got to eat fermented foods also, because you want to rebuild the breadth and width of the variety of the microbiome and the quantity of the good ones. The fiber brings in the bacteria that produce a lot of butyric acid. Now, why is that so important? Because butyric acid is a postbiotic. It's a product of the bacteria. In a sense, it's the poop of the bacteria. And when it gets released by the bacteria, first and foremost, it supplies energy to the colonocytes, the lining of your gut. So those gut lining get a good energy source right away. So if there's any gap junction problems, they heal themselves, because now there's more energy being given to those colonocytes. Secondly, the rest of the butyric acid gets absorbed into the bloodstream, and in the body, it's anti-inflammatory. So butyric acid is your best friend. These are short-chain fatty acids, which are produced by bacteria. Short-chain fatty acids are exceedingly important. After you break your fast, and even in your day-to-day life, you need lots of butyric acid. They are produced by specific strains of bacteria. Those bacteria will flourish if you increase your fiber intake. So I can give you those species separately as a probiotic. They're not going to get there, because by the time they get down to your colon, those bacteria are going to be dead mostly, right? Even all these others where they say, oh, it's a special preparation, blah, blah, blah. Most of them die on their way down there. So what I do is, look, they're there already. When you're severely fasting, a lot of bacterial species, the good ones, reside and hide in your appendix and in certain crypts, in the crypts, which are the little caves inside your intestinal lining. And they sit there, and they're dormant. And when the food starts coming back again, they flourish. That's how it happens. That's how you repopulate your gut, but they need the fiber. So you break your fast, you got to eat fiber. You got to eat fiber. So you go back on inulin plus FOS. And you eat other vegetables that have fiber because you need a variety of fiber, not just one kind of fiber. That's why I like herbs and I like vegetables of different varieties, different colors, because I'm feeding my microbiome. All these phytochemicals that we talk about, the polyphenols, oh, they're so good for me. And, polyphenols are wonderful for me. They're not good for you. They're good for your bacteria. And that's a nuance that I teach my patients. That, look, you're really eating for your bacteria. So the polyphenols are taken up by the good bacteria, and the good bacterial population that you have will release postbiotics besides short-chain fatty acids. They produce tons and tons of neurochemicals, neurotransmitters in the gut. Do you know what's fascinating, Jesse, is that if we think that all these micronutrients in our blood are what you manufactured and metabolized and made, all the micronutrients. And we're beginning to realize that a lot of them actually are not made by human physiology. They're consumed by human physiology. They're made by bacteria, by your symbiotic organisms, because you, human being, you're a symbiote. You are a symbiote, more than a human being. So you have to rely on the good bacteria there. You have to rely on them after a fast and even in your day-to-day life. You need to take care of those guys. Because if you don't take care of them, you're going to get really, really sick. And yes, you may not die, but you're not going to have a healthy lifespan. So these good bacteria flourish when you start feeding them fiber. So you break your fast, you need to take the inulin variety of vegetables with the fiber in them, right? And of course, when you clean up your diet and you're not eating all these artificial sweeteners and preservatives and emulsifiers and chemicals, man-made chemicals. Oh, by the way, why are man-made chemicals so bad for you? Is it bad for you? Well, yeah, some of them are really bad for human physiology, but a lot of them are really bad for your gut microbiome. For example, if you take these artificial sweeteners, what happens is that you're destroying your microbiome with that, because they're the ones that have the genetic ability to actually do something with that artificial chemical that you put into your gut. How is that possible? Because you only have 23,000 genes, but the total genome in your gut with all your bacteria goes into the millions of genes. And one of those genes can digest that plastic that you just put in there, or your chemical that you threw inside there, or the coloring, or the whatever it is. But in doing so, that bacterial species will flourish, and that may not be good for you. See my point? So you're encouraging the growth of those bacteria simply because you put some poison into your gut. But you don't want that bacteria in there. Yeah, it's doing its job at that moment, but you want a good gut population that's good for you, that was there in your teleological years. That means your evolutionary years that you came down with. So what you're doing, you need to be aware of your microbiome. Fasting is an incredible way to reset your microbiome. And then after fasting is over, you eat the fibers to replenish the gut microbiome, and of course clean up your diet so that you still foster the growth of good microbiome. Fermented foods, fiber, phytonutrients, right? Phytonutrients, fish oil. Oh gosh, I can't tell you much more about fish oil. Fish oil is amazing. So you got to break your fast, you got to start taking your fish oil. We are all fish oil deficient. We are all omega-3 deficient, all of us. And it's not so much a deficiency, it's really the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6. This is, look, if there are a few supplements you absolutely have to take, whether you're healthy or not, right now, all of you you have to take vitamin D3 because all of you are vitamin D3 deficient. You should take K2 and you should take fish oil. You have to do this. You're all deficient in this. So what does omega-3 do to the gut? It changes your microbiome. It enhances the health of your gut lining as well. So now that you fasted, your gut lining is going to be much healthier with omega-3. And of course, systemically, omega-3 helps you as a human being as well, because this is the fish, the oil that you really need. In all your cell membranes, they're less likely to have lipid peroxidation. Your LDL particles will be better. They're less prone to oxidation. The fluidity of your cell membranes is better. I mean, I can just go on, and your platelets are better. And so much good physiology with omega-3. And if you're a vegetarian, there's omega-3 vegetarian forms of it, so you don't have to go out and take fish oil if you're a vegetarian. But you got to get your omega-3 up. So chia seeds, wonderful. I love chia seeds, right? You put chia seeds in your kefir, and you put your your raspberries, and your blackberry in it, and about 10 blueberries in it, and you have a powerhouse. So how do you break your fast? You've taken your bone broth. A few hours later, you had a little salad. Now you take your kefir, one bowl of it, about a cup in it, and I take inulin, 1 scoop, I put it in there. Then I take 5 raspberries. Raspberries are so fantastic. There are a lot of soluble fiber in it as well, tons of it. And plus, it's got all the phytonutrients in it. I can't tell you how important raspberries are. And then I take 5 blueberries, 2 blackberries. Okay? And when strawberries are in season, I'll have 1, maybe 1.5 or 2 strawberries, because strawberries have fantastic chemicals in them as well. So put that all in there and you eat that. Now I've eaten for myself also, but I've eaten for my bacteria as well and my gut lining. So this, and then I do that every day. This kefir every day. So you can have it as a breakfast. You can have it as a lunch break if that's what you're doing, or you can have it just before you sit down for dinner. And remember that when you are fasting, even on a day-to-day basis, you don't have to have your meal all at one time. Spread it out. Come home, put your briefcase down, have your salad, and then go check out the plants and walk around. Maybe you want to look at some paperwork that you brought home, or worse still, look at some bills that you have to pay. Spend some time doing something else. Then, half an hour later, come back and sit down and eat. Spread it out. Spread out your dinner. Maybe you'll come back and have your kefir, and then go out again for another half an hour and do something, and then come back and have your main meal. You see what I'm saying? So this is a change that we all need to make today. None of this where you sit down and you're done in 20 minutes. You've had everything, including your salad, your kefir, and your main meal, all in one meal, quickly in 20 minutes. I don't think that's a good idea. I think you need to spread it out. Your body is not supposed to get all its nutrients all in one big shot. I think it's a good idea to spread it out. So the microbiome is a neglected part of your health. And of course, it pertains to your fasting as well, but it's very, very important. Taking probiotic pills in and of themselves has not been part of my armamentarium. I do give a couple of probiotics, which I've chosen, particularly like Akkermansia muciniphila, which I think is very helpful in patients who have very low levels. But then I measure that first. And if they are very low in their stools, then only I'll give it to them. So there are a few. I like Lactobacillus reuteri as well, but I measure those in their stools. So I do those under measurement. But otherwise, no, get back to nature. Look, you there's no hole in my tongue for a capsule. So I don't want to take capsules. Unfortunately, you're going to have to take fish oil, D3, and K2. Okay, those are exceptions, just because we don't get them. But otherwise, there's no hole in my mouth. So I don't want to give you capsules as such. Then the fasting, I'm trying to think about other classic things that you can do. Oh, yeah, of course, when you break your fast, you need lots of nutrients. which you want to take back. So I do tell patients to take trace elements. You must take some trace elements. Okay, trace elements are very important. Everyone needs trace elements. We don't get enough in our food. So you break your fast, you take some trace elements, just a dropper, 2-3 drops. That's all you really need. Best, put in your kefir. Your kefir won't even notice the difference. Play it up. Cocoa. I love cocoa. Break a fast with some cocoa powder, organic cocoa powder. It's mostly soluble fiber, and it's a great tasting. You just take a scoop and you put it in your kefir, mix it up. Right there, I'm giving you a gem right there. Right there. That's a fantastic thing. So, yeah, so break your fast using those things. Yeah.
Let's come back to exercise with fasting. Let's talk about types, because exercise can include a lot of different things and different intensities. So what type do you recommend for people during a fast, an extended fast, and how often?
So exercise is really, really important. We know that. There's two kinds. Let's cut to the chase. There's two kinds. There's aerobic, and then there's high intensity interval training. I am all about HIIT or modified HIIT. Call it whatever. Give it all these names. But basically, look, the long and short of it is this. Intense short burst of activity with intense rest. What does that mean? That means you do a short burst of activity at the highest, fastest rate and most that you can do for about 45 seconds, maximum a minute, and then just stop and rest completely. And why do I do this? Why do I advocate? Why do I do that myself also? Because, again, it comes down to those generations and generations of humans before you. They ran away from danger. They ran away from danger and hid behind the tree or the rock, or they quickly swam across the river to get away from the crocodile. But they didn't keep running and running and running and running and running, because they'll be caught by the saber-toothed tiger and killed already, right? From the physiological standpoint, when you're constantly running like that, you're producing a lot of reactive oxygen species and lactic acid and other types of chemicals in your body, from your muscles. And that constant production of an inflammatory substrate and your inability to produce antioxidants, the free radical scavengers, is a problem. Our rate limiting step is our ability to produce superoxide dismutase, glutathione. These are anti-inflammatory redox capturing molecules. It's a rate limiting step. So if you're constantly exercising too much and keep running and running and running, you do yourself some harm. So for example, I'll give you an example. My marathon runners, in general, they have more atherosclerosis, more coronary calcium, more inflammatory markers, and yet they're running miles and miles and miles a day, and they lean and they come in my office, but they have coronary disease. So I'm always skeptical about that type of lifelong exercise. But I do like sprinters. I do like HIIT for that reason. And I have practically seen it in my clinic, where my people who go to the gym and do HIIT, when I analyze them, their inflammatory markers, their CRP levels, their interleukin-6 levels are much better than my marathon runners who have higher inflammatory markers and they have more coronary calcium. So, inflammatory markers are a surrogate, because if you do some exercise, interleukin-6 first is released from the muscles, but then it comes down again nicely. But it's a surrogate for what's going on. What's the final thing that I'm interested in? I'm interested in your coronary calcium. Because if your calcium score is high, you got coronary disease. You're going to die of coronary artery disease. And if it's going up and up and up and up, now I'm really unhappy, because that means your burner's on. You're still cooking inside, right? So my view on exercise is you should stay fit. You must stretch, because I think stretching is really important, because stretching changes your muscle as well, makes them longer, thinner, leaner. And also, you must do HIIT on a daily basis. Short bursts of activity with intense rest. The intense rest gives your body a chance to clean up the mess you made. That's why I like HIIT. But if you think you're going to get on that treadmill and run for an hour and a half continuously, I think you're going to have a problem. You'll have more joint pains, more problems with inflammation in your body. So I don't. Now, during a fast, you should do HIIT. You should do resistance exercises. I like resistant exercises and HIIT. Resistance exercises means flow exercises. Look, everyone can do this. You basically lie down, you do a plank, you do a side plank, you do leg lifts, you do sit-ups. I like that because that's going to give you flexibility, you're stretching at the same time, and you're doing resistance using your own body weight to create the resistance. And now that stimulates bone. Okay, so you're less likely to get osteoporosis, osteopenia, and you build up muscle at the same time. To build up muscle, you need resistance exercises. So squatting, sit-ups, all these things. And as you get older, you need more muscle. I told you, because if you fall, you're in trouble. If you break your hip, you're in real trouble. So stay strong and be as muscular as you can, of course. You got to do exercise. So during a fast, you should do some HIIT and some resistance exercises. Don't get on that treadmill. I'm not too fond. Treadmill's fine if you're going to be doing a triathlon and you need some endurance, or you're getting ready to do some heavy-duty skiing and you want endurance. That's a great thing to do for endurance purposes. But once it's over, it's done. Yes, you'll be able to stay on the slopes longer and you're less likely to fatigue and all that because you did all that. That's wonderful. But it's not a long-term strategy. It's a short-term strategy. And that's what I encourage on my patients. It is important, though, and I'm glad that you brought it up.
You mentioned osteoporosis there. And one of the classic things a lot of people are doing prevention-wise for that is taking calcium.
Yes.
You're not a fan. Explain why.
Numerous cardiac studies have shown that elemental calcium supplements actually increases coronary artery disease. You see, look at your food today. Everything's calcium fortified. Everything's, even your orange juice has calcium in it. And yet, look at the epidemic of osteopenia. I live in Florida, and all the young women that come see me in their 30s all have osteopenia, and we have sun all the time. What's going on? What's going on is calcium's not the problem. The problem is they're not absorbing the calcium. The calcium in the diet is enough. The calcium gets inside your gut, but doesn't get absorbed because the absorption is related to vitamin D3. And we have an epidemic of D3 deficiency because our food is so neutropenic. It doesn't have any nutritional value in it. There's so little vitamin D3 in our food nowadays. So we don't get enough vitamin D3. That's why, look, when we went on this low-fat this and low-fat that diet, look what happened. We stopped absorbing fat-soluble vitamins. Vitamin A, D, E, K. And you know how hard it is for me to tell my patients that they need to increase the fat intake. And instead of drinking skim milk, they should be drinking whole milk. You know how hard it is for me to do that? And the lack of fat means they're not absorbing A, D, E, and K, including K2. So are we surprised that there's an epidemic of osteopenia? Of course. Now, exercise is important and resistance exercises are important to maintain positive calcium balance inside your muscles. But the other thing that is your diet. You need D3. And the other thing you need is K2. So D3 will absorb the calcium and K2 will put it into the right places, which is in the bone. So you don't get non-osseous calcification. So I like K2 because it boosts the movement of calcium into the bones. And for me, that's important because coronary calcification is not a good idea. That's ossification of a non-osseous structure, and I don't want that. So D3 is very important for me for multiple reasons. It's not just for bone health, but vitamin D3 is also involved in over 350 chemical reactions in the body, including to maintain your immune system, gut health. There's so many benefits with D3. So I encourage D3 at least 5,000 units a day. And better still, you should measure your vitamin D levels. You must measure it. Now, the government says anything over 30 is okay. And through experience and the reading that I do, I think it should be more like 60, between 60 and probably 100. That's where I want my vitamin D levels. So that's something I can measure. Vitamin K2, I don't measure. I can't measure. I just give them a pill to take. But when you're eating a lot of fermented food, for example, your kefir, you're going to get some K2 there too. But don't rely on that. Just get the combination D3, K2 combination pill. I like that. Bone health is very, very important. When you put pressure on a bone and you kind of bend it like that, it sets up a electric current inside the bone because it's piezo crystal, really. And when you do that, it forces deposition of calcium into the bones. That's why you have to do resistance exercises. Everyone must, because then you get stronger bones. Get some sunshine. Take D3, K2. Don't take calcium, elemental calcium. Not a good idea. Look, we've been doing that actually. Why are we even talking about it? When for the last 40 years, we've been advising all the women to take calcium supplements. Have we not? We've been telling all the women, yes, take calcium this, calcium that. And it's a multi-million-dollar business. And what did it do to osteopenic rates? Did they improve? No, they got worse. They got worse and worse and worse and worse. There was no drastic improvement in bone density because people started taking elemental calcium. So it's not a good idea. Not a good idea. Don't like that at all. Now, the vitamins that you should take are these. And you should also take a good general multivitamin. I'm not against that at all. A good general multivitamin. Just because, look, as I said, I don't have holes in my tongue for capsules, but our food is neutropenic. It just doesn't have as much nutrition as before. One of them is magnesium. Our soils are magnesium depleted. Our vegetables don't have enough magnesium in them. Our bodies don't have enough magnesium. And when you measure your magnesium level, it's not measuring intracellular magnesium. All of us need magnesium supplements. Magnesium is important for me as a cardiologist because I know that the electrophysiological properties of conduction tissues in the heart are very importantly controlled by their magnesium levels as well. So it affects your cell membrane potential. Magnesium is very, very important. So everyone should be on some form of magnesium supplement unless you have chronic renal failure. Chronic renal failure patients tend to have higher magnesium, and you shouldn't take that. But otherwise, you should take a magnesium supplement. And you can take it as a pill form, or you can put it on your skin as a spray. By the way, that's why I love going to Daytona Beach, right? Why? Because I get into the ocean. Why do I feel so good after bathing myself in the ocean water? Because the ocean water has a lot of magnesium, and it gets absorbed through my skin. There's so many benefits going to the beach, by the way, even from the cardiac standpoint. So my magnesium's better, so my heart is going to be working better. But also the microbiome. Go to the ocean, and every breath that you take will have droplets of ocean water coming in, which is full of different bacteria. We're supposed to be exchanging bacteria with our environment. When I go out to walk in the forest, the microbiome from the trees is in the air, and I'm inhaling it. So again, I'm replenishing good species, bad species. I'm exchanging with the environment, not just oxygen, nitrogen, the way we all. No, you're exchanging parts of nature coming into you. I'm having live bacteria coming in and it's going to my gut microbiome. Because it comes here, I swallow it, goes down into my gut. And it gets through my ears, my nose, my microbiome, all over my body changes when I go to the beach. Plus, of course, I get the sun, and then plus I get earthing, and we can talk about all those things. But there you go. So go to the beach. Go to the beach. Walk on the sand. And get a little bit of sunshine, not too much. And swim in the ocean water is wonderful.
All right, Dr. J, last question for today. We've talked about fasting extensively.
Yeah.
All the different benefits. Somebody that wants to put this into action, obviously we need to balance it with periods of time we're eating a healthy diet as well. How do they structure this as part of a healthy lifestyle? We've talked about going up to a 7-day water fast. So what does that look like throughout a year? How often would somebody want to do these longer fasts?
Okay. So what the final question is, a healthy person, how would he, just wants to do good maintenance. I want to be healthy because I want a health lifespan, right?
Yeah, let's talk about from short to long, how often they want to do different fasts.
Okay. Every day should be a fasting experience. So doing time-restricted feeding on a daily basis should become part of your life. Stop snacking. It's unnatural. You should only have 2 meals a day in a 6-hour interval. This or 8 at the most. This is my recommendation, number 1. Number 2 is that at least twice a month, minimum twice a month, you should do a fast. That means minimum 24 hours fasting. And when you get used to doing 2 24-hour fasts a month, then once in a while you can make it into a 36-hour fast. But doing this is so good for your physiology and the hormesis and all the things we talked about. So a normal person, healthy person, I just want to stay out of Dr. J's office and better still want to stay off his cath lab table, right? Then this is what you need to do. Time-restricted feeding. Eat right. Fast at least twice a month where you can just skip that one meal also and just go to 24-hour fast. I'm not asking you to do more. These are for normal people, not for people who are sick. If you're diabetic and all that stuff, of course, though you got to do more extended fasting on that. But just you and I, normal people. That's what we need to do. And then you can take it to the next level. If there's a family history of any type of disease whatsoever, it tends to run in my family. Everyone got this. Everyone got cancer. Everyone had heart disease. Then at least once a year, minimum once a year, you should do a 5-day water fast for a normal, healthy person once a year, if there's a strong family history. So I don't have anything wrong with me. I'm fine, except I have a strong family history. Just do a 5-day water fast once a year. It will really change your physiology. I want to mention one thing to you, Jess, that when, let's say I eat a 1,500 calorie meal today, and I've eaten it in the setting of having had lunch. I already had lunch, and now I'm going out and I'm eating a 1,500 calorie diet. Versus, had I not eaten all day today, and now I'm eating 1,500 calories. Is there a difference in the way my body is going to deal with those 1,500 calories? And I want everyone to understand this very carefully. And yes, there's a huge difference because those calories that were consumed in a non-fasting state, you're going to require a much higher amount of insulin production because you're not that insulin sensitive, because you had just eaten. When you haven't eaten all day, and now you eat the 1,500 calories, you're insulin sensitive, so you're only going to make this much insulin. What's the big difference? When you make only a small amount of insulin, less of it is going to go into deposition. And deposition where? Into storage. Where? Into the viscera, into your liver, around your pancreas and all the ectopic fat. Versus when you're making a lot of insulin, the same 1,500 calories, you're going to gain weight because you got so much insulin. You're going to gain weight. You're going to get visceral fat. But wait a second, we had 1,500 calories. That one meal is going to be partitioned totally differently. Had you eaten that in a fasting state than eating it in a fed state? This is extremely important to understand. Your body will take the 1,500 calories in a fasting state, okay, where your insulin levels were very low, and it will not store those calories and convert it into fat. It'll take a certain amount only and put it into storage, very small amount. And the rest of it, so what happened to those calories? How can they just vanish? There's no such thing as vanishing calories. Those calories get burnt off. And where do they get burnt off? They get burnt off in your brown fat cells. Those brown fat cells are inside your viscera, not viscera, in your thoracic cavity and under your skin. And they're brown because they're full of mitochondria, the brown cells. And they increase in numbers. You get browning through fasting. And then the mitochondria in those cells burn the calories. They literally just burn the calories. And they produce heat. And they burn them off. So it's not a waste. What the body is doing is that it's making your mitochondria very efficient, and the browning of fat cells is very healthy for you. The other way, you did not allow that to happen. You took most of that because so much insulin you had, you put it all into storage. Now you got to deal with that stored fat in your liver and in your pancreas. So what I'm saying is that eating that same meal in a fasting state is more forgiving to you. That is what I'm saying. Timing is more important than the actual content of the food. Actual content is important. Okay, don't get me wrong. I don't want people to think that, I got to go out and eat whatever I want. No. But the timing is very important. So eat when you are in a fasting state. You'll be far better off eating in a fasting state. I haven't eaten for 18 hours, 16 hours, whatever you want. And then you eat your meal. It's far more forgiving for you in your physiology, because repeated elevations in your insulin levels will make you insulin resistant, and eventually you become a diabetic patient. And you don't want to do that. You're an epidemic of diabetes. So the important message here is timing of eating. Don't underestimate that. It's this whole thing about calories in, calories out. I'm watching my calories. Is all garbage. Nothing but garbage. It's this calories in, calories out has been debunked. But people still, look, anything new in medicine will take at least 10 years before it becomes the norm. Yet it's taking so long for the community to accept this, the medical community to actually accept this. This is the same way as about smoking. We knew about smoking for years, but it took almost 50 years before we finally did something about it. We don't have 50 more years to change the way we eat and our relationship with food and how often we eat and what we eat. We don't have 50 years. Our children don't have 50 years. And the quality of their brain and their lifestyle and their health is being affected now. We need to change today.
All right, Dr. J, great place to end it. Thoroughly enjoyed round 2. This is a masterclass on fasting. We're going to link up your YouTube channel, your websites, your social media, everything in the show notes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's always been a pleasure. Thank you.
Now that you're done, you're going to want to stick around here and catch this other incredible episode. You don't want to miss it. I'll see you over there.
A lot of coronary artery disease is very silent. That plaque is silently sitting there in millions of people without them even knowing. And there are ways to find this out now. We have the technology. It's just not being